Okay, we'll begin the meeting. Welcome, Kevin, new candidate, and welcome the balance of you returning. All of those who needed to be sworn in, have they been so sworn in?
I have.
Excellent. We'll begin the process of reorganization with the position of chair. I'll open the floor for nominations for the position of chair.
I'd like to nominate Kevin Merritt for chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Deb. Are there other nominations for the position of chair? Hearing none. All those in favor of Kevin serving as your chair for the following year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr.
Yay.
Chair. If you want to continue the process with the remaining positions, that would be great.
Okay, so the next on the slate we need to do is elect a vice chair. Do we have any nominations from the floor?
I would like to nominate Deb Baker Moody, if she's willing to.
Great. Are there any other nominations? That being so, all in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Welcome. And
Thank you.
we also need to nominate a clerk. So let's open the floor for nominations for clerk.
I'd like to nominate Giovanna.
I'll second that.
Great. Any other nominations from the floor? That being so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We have ourselves a slate. So that brings us to committee appointments. So I think the first thing we need to do is discuss and reaffirm our appointments to the CSSU board, of which we're appointed 3, right, Bob?
Correct.
So I think it's probably easier to kind of just open this up for open discussion real quick and talk about which 3 of us want to either continue to do this or have an interest to.
And maybe just for education purposes for Kevin.
Yeah,
so we
yeah, that's
can-
kind of why I wanted to slow down here real quick.
Yeah.
I have no interest for the record.
Okay.
But, so it's a knowledgeable waiver of interest.
Absolutely.
It's
Knowledgeable.
Okay. But the CSSU board really, not only are there certain staffing relationships in particular, they hire and oversee the superintendent, who then makes staffing decisions that affect our board, like the principals in particular. But also, as I understand it, starting next year, special ed services will be flowing from the CSSU, and there's certain other services that we get that come from the CSSU, transportation, things of that nature.
I'm not swayed.
Fair enough,
Okay, I'd like to.
Okay, so Deb'd like to,
Same
I'd
here.
like to continue.
and I'm happy to continue as well.
Great, so do we need to actually, we don't have to have a motion or
It'd be
anything?
nice if Giovanna nominated you 3.
Okay.
That would
That
be
would work
perfect.
really well.
Will you do that for him?
I will be more than happy. So
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Kevin Mara, Deb Baker Moody, and Josh Diamond as the representatives for the Williston School Board, for the CSSU committee. No, I mean,
For the CSSU board.
CSSU board, sorry.
Great.
Perfect.
I think we've just had the discussion on the motion, unless anyone else has anything else they need to add. Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. So there we go. We have our CSSU representatives named. Committee appointments. Policy committee, that's one.
I could use some education in this area.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure what the committees are for.
So,
board.
the policy committee, well, there's some history, but the short of it is that at the CSSU level and then at our level, we have a set of policies that we review every year and update. And there are many policies, and a good place to go and review them is on the website. So there's a schedule of the policies that committee will go through and review, and then it's brought to each board for review and then action in the subsequent
Sure.
meetings.
As an overview, what are the committees that we have on the board?
What
right
else
now?
do we have right now? I don't think.
I believe you're going to elect a policy rep
Mhm.
for policy committee, a person to the negotiations committee, a person to a St. George Williston negotiations group. I don't think you've got an active assignment to a facilities committee, so I'll take that one off the list.
Yeah.
And then, Walter and I would like it if you'd name someone assistant clerk behind the clerk, so that when the clerk is traveling, it's rather quick to get to a second board member. So those are the ones.
And then-
No reflections on past practice, Kevin.
So those are the formal committees, right?
Yes.
And then we have ad hoc, I guess, would that be a right way? Like, for example, the one that I'm in, the food,
It's a good point. There's a food service ad hoc committee established at the CSSU level, of which people volunteered. And I'm assuming anybody that's on it and comes back remains on it. So the only board that's naming a new person, or kind of a variation of an old one, is the Heinsberg Board.
Right.
right.
And refresh me on the negotiations in the St. George Williston negotiations.
You, as a board, signed a letter of agreement along with the St. George Board in February that said, in essence, you're both very interested in concluding negotiations leading to a follow-on agreement to have St. George send their children to the Williston K-8 school. The two boards need to come up with a document that they can both agree to, and this negotiations committee would be crafting that agreement for eventual board approval on both sides of the equation.
And so for time commitments, Kevin, just so you understand, for this policy committee, so we meet once a month, because I've been in that role for the past couple of years. So you meet once a month, you meet here, CVU, at 8 a.m. And the meeting, you know, depends on how much policy discussion there is or review there is, can take, I've never been more than an hour. Sometimes it's literally like 10 minutes. So it all depends on what policy and discussion that arises from each. Yes. It is for sure, and not that I'm trying to sell you the role, but it is a good way that to get knee deep into like what it is that the whole thing is.
Selling it. And you're on this committee already?
I am.
Would there be how many people are on each of these committees usually?
I think there's one from each.
One rep from each person, or
Yeah.
from each
Why
board.
wouldn't you want to do it again?
Oh, no, I can continue doing it, but
Yeah,
you
okay.
expressed some interest in getting into.
Yeah, no, I was just curious what all the committees were.
Okay. So are you interested?
No.
Okay.
And just for the record too, you will get to review all the policies regardless. Like, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah,
today,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
we're voting on,
Yeah, I understand.
or having action.
We're having
Yeah.
discussion tonight.
Discussions on
policy,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Very good. Well, with that, I'd like to nominate Giovanna as our representative to the policy committee. Any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Here.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so, is negotiations like negotiations? Do we need to do that now? Because we don't have any negotiations.
I think you have some time right now, that you don't have to do it right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna hold on that. Yeah, 'cause I'm not quite sure, if we'd be nominating one member or two members to it. I wanna check on that.
Yeah.
We should get you some details. What do you think?
I am open to that. I know that there are trainings that they are scheduling.
Ah, that might be
And
it.
I'm certainly comfortable with this limbo as long as I'm on a communications list.
I have a feeling as a board, we're gonna be meeting again sooner than later. So, perhaps we can confirm this at our next meeting.
Happy.
Do you want me to ask now so that you
Yeah,
can
in case there's
just go ahead
something-
and get your two people if you
Yeah.
can, right, while we're in this mode?
Yeah,
So you want to know how many reps?
yeah, really, I guess that's what I wanna know. I wanna
Okay.
make sure I understand what,
I think it is two.
I think it is two
two.
also.
I agree.
Yeah, it's
Who
not
are the
just
two
one.
now? Oh, it
Well,
hasn't been for a while.
Well, it has
It
been for a
hasn't
while.
been.
Right.
And previously it was,
Did you do it?
no, it was Keith.
Keith, okay.
So it was, and was it you, Holly?
Darlene?
No, Holly and I did not
Darlene,
do
No,
it.
Keith
I
and
wasn't, but-
Darlene.
Darlene, I think.
Yeah, so we've been,
I think it was two. I don't even think we have to check.
Well,
I think you
No,
have
I-
it
two.
is two.
I recall some communication with someone, I can't remember who, that talked about they wanted to reduce the size of the committee because it was so large last time.
Lovely. Yeah,
So,
We might be looking at one per board now.
Okay. I'll let you know.
And we are going through negotiations though, aren't we?
No.
Not now.
Yeah.
Not right away.
They're doing that prep work.
Oh,
Yeah.
We will be soon.
Shortly.
soon, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Remember we extended the contract for an
Yes.
additional year
yes,
to
sorry.
pursue that.
Yep.
But the planning for it will happen this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on then. The St. George Williston contract. Is anyone interested in serving to work with St. George representative to sew up the? All right, I'll do it. Okay. Someone nominate me. Let's be official.
I'll
about this.
nominate Kevin.
Second?
Kevin
Oh.
Mara, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Merrill, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna get good at that.
I'll just fly underneath
I might
the
start
radar,
ducking.
it'll be fine, everything will go to you.
Any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then assistant clerk is not an official title. Let's just hammer this out here. So Giovanna's the clerk.
Kevin, I think that would be great for
I do
you,
too.
because you're also right next to the school.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. So just an understanding for time commitment for that is that every 2 weeks, I just did it today, so in 2 weeks, again, payroll and events and accounts payable will come up. So as board members, the clerk has to review all payroll and accounts payable and sign off on it at every single solitary time. Now.
Serious?
Seriously. Seriously.
You want me to sign off on payroll?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, welcome to your fiduciary responsibilities.
Yeah. Can I sign off on the nurse's notes? Be more comfortable doing that.
So, the buck stop
Seriously.
here.
Uh,
So it's a matter of, they usually come in on a Tuesday and need to be reviewed by end of business Wednesday, because it then goes to the town treasurer, who also reviews them and signs off on the same document.
So when are
and
they,
sets the
when are
checks.
they available? At what time?
Usually Tuesday morning, and
Tuesday
then,
morning,
yeah,
at what time?
10 a.m.-ish. And I usually sign them on Wednesday morning. And you can,
Well, this would just be in case something comes up?
In
Yeah.
case of
In case
me
Giovanna
not being
comes in.
available.
Yeah.
Right.
All right,
and
I'm good with that.
And any board member can do this, by the way, as an
Yeah.
alternate. But
It's just so that they
administration
have like
just
an
wants to
immediate
know
go-to
that,
if
that
it's not
there's,
me.
that they know who to go to in the event they can't get hold of Giovanna,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? So my suggestion is next time, the three of us go, and I'll take you through the process, because I've been doing it the last 2 years.
My work is so that I can't leave work, and oftentimes
I
I work
assume
long
so.
hours.
Yeah,
so-
I assume so,
But
but,
I
is,
do have availability, that's not an issue.
yeah, so,
And we can back you up, I mean.
yeah, really.
All right, good.
Okay.
Sign off on payroll.
So that's that.
Kevin, may I just ask a little note-taking on Sandy Raymond's behalf? Did someone nominate you for the St. George negotiations?
Yes.
Yes,
I-
Deb did.
Thank you, Deb. She'll be glad. She has good notes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good.
All right.
And I'll
Okay.
stay sitting on FAP. It's not really a formal
That was the
position,
other
but
one. No, actually, but we need, that's
That's
something we need to do.
important.
Okay.
You need a
Communication
nomination?
piece.
I
I
don't
know.
think it's not a committee.
It's not a committee.
So
or
it's,
anything. Yeah.
negotiations is TBD. I've got that. And Kevin B has got that. Okay, so why don't we move? You haven't got any answer back on the,
Not yet.
Yeah.
I did both Elaine and Bob.
okay.
Cindy will know.
I have a feeling you're right. I think it's gonna be one.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to decide if it's gonna be easier just to do it now and amend, or just move on and do it later.
Why don't we?
Why don't we nominate Josh?
Yeah.
And then if we
Yeah.
need another,
Yeah, then we can nominate another.
Yeah,
That's great.
I'll
so like,
or go ahead, Jiva.
no, you go.
I nominate Josh for the negotiations.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great,
Okay?
that solves it.
Yeah, that's all.
So we're set, unless we need another one.
Yeah, we have a slate. Okay, so let's move on to audience and communications, item number 4 on the agenda. Do we have anybody?
What about the adjustments to the agenda?
Thank you. That's actually a good point. So, before we go rip-roaring into this, let's jump back to item number 3, which is adjustments to the agenda. So, do we have any? Does anybody need to call anything out of discussion?
I would like to see the discussion matters budget moved up because I brought Kathy Gray from the program council, she's the co-chair, to be able to listen to this, and we have a council meeting next week. And so we're doing our planning session tomorrow, so it'd be good to have some direct word about what it is the next part of what we have to work on.
Okay, that should be easy because we just have audience and communications and no presentations.
Okay.
We can do board reports after.
Okay.
That works fine. Anything else? Anything anybody sees in discussion that we need to pull out? Okay. All right, I'm sorry, in consent. It's item 9, the consent agenda.
I have an answer. One.
Here's one.
Okay.
Brilliant we are. Great. Okay, so now let's move on to audience and communication. Do we have anybody who cares to speak? We're good? Okay. Item 5, we have no presentations tonight. So let's move on to item number 6, discussion matters, and we'll start with 6.1, the budget. Which really comes down to where do we start?
Maybe a process point of, what timetables we have, setting up new elections.
I read in the school bill today that apparently we cannot set another day in 30 days, is that right?
I think it
Yeah,
has to
you have
be
to
after
wait
30
30
days.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
And,
know exactly
and
what
then we
that
have to,
means,
and then
but-
we have to report a budget to the state by what, June 1st? Somewhere in June. So we have a pretty tight window.
Otherwise, you automatically,
Revert back to the previous year's budget, which
So-
wouldn't be good.
So in 30 days, we present our new budget, just so that it's clear to me. If that's what those 30 days mean?
No, we can't have a second vote until 30 days after the original vote.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just we
okay.
can't, we can't,
I
we
see.
can't.
So we can be
Okay.
working on it and getting
I
it
see.
ready.
Okay.
So would it make sense, before we either slide into the substance, talk about a timetable that might work, or do we really need to talk about the substance before we get to a
I
timetable?
think it's a catch-20, it's one of the other,
Okay.
yeah. I think, I mean, we could look at a potential, date to, to have the revote and work backwards. That's
I
what's one
think
way to
that's
do it.
easier,
You wanna do that?
because I think what we need to determine is how we're gonna.
I think yeah, that's fine. And then logistically, my only comment on timing is that let's not shoot the community, in the foot and do it over April break.
That was gonna be
Correct.
exactly my
Correct.
point.
Let's give everybody a chance to vote. Yeah. So that's just a logistical thing. So if that's where you guys want to start, let me just pull up the calendar
So
here.
April break is the end of April, right?
Mhm.
The third week.
Third week of April.
So just to give us some breathing room, just to throw out a date, the first week of May, maybe,
For what?
for an election?
Okay, let's,
I would do it the second week after we come back, because people are kind of frazzled getting back into routine, don't you think?
here's the chess game.
Mm-hmm.
If you fail, you cannot vote again for 30 days.
Oh.
And then if we fail on the second one, Last year's budget is the one we hold to.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
We, because I
No
feel like
revote.
anecdotally, I've
Well, we
heard
don't
of,
have time to revote,
Right.
right?
I would like to get that nailed down.
Okay.
Well,
Um,
you know, if it goes to a vote a second time and it gets shot down,
The answer's,
no.
yeah, the answer's no.
Yeah, but the ramifications of going back with last year's budget, if that is correct, could be
Mhm.
really significant in
We gotta
ways we
make it
can't even
pass.
appreciate.
Yeah.
Because of
Lots of cuts.
automatic inflationary increases in salaries alone, I mean, we could see.
Our baseline was, it was 4.12%, so we're gonna have
This
to
isn't-
cut 4.12 off of
Right,
basic, yeah, I mean, that's what you'd have to do.
That's right.
which is what, yeah.
Yeah, so, that's, so, you know, it sort of puts some pressure on us. If we do it,
But I'm not sure that that's correct. I'm not sure.
well, I
we
would
don't-
love to know that it's not, because it's,
Can we get Bob?
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
We can get Bob Mason.
yeah, Bob's gotta help us with this one. So why don't we table this part of the discussion, just until we can get a little more clarification on the ramifications of the timing?
Absolutely.
And let's talk about the substance of the issue, which is that we had a very close vote, and I think we should probably discuss why we think that occurred. I think the elephant in the room is that the community seemed pretty, enough of a portion of the community didn't like the iPad initiative, and that, I think, was detrimental. But I also think you have to look at the vote. It was 602 to 627, and I don't believe that 627 people didn't believe in the iPad initiative. So
I agree.
what are the other things that we think are contributing to the,
Well, there's gonna always be a demographic that does not support the school budget regardless of what we do.
that is true.
And certainly the feedback that I've gotten, and I'm not saying this is a scientific survey, but it's been almost unanimous that people who would have otherwise supported the budget had a problem with the iPads.
I'd agree.
I third that.
I would add to that based on same comment, you know, no scientific survey here either, but I did hear multiple comments of people who would have voted yay on the budget, would we have not had the co-teaching change, because they did not feel that they understood what was behind it. So was that a driver for no? For a vast majority of the people, clearly I don't think that's the case. But it is a factor that seems to have swayed some people against it.
I think we should look at the low voter turnout. Did you do?
That as
know
well,
how many
right.
parents and,
We
students
haven't,
are voting?
we could pull the records, we haven't done that, to find
'Cause
out
that's
who
a
did and who
really
didn't
low
vote.
turnout for Williston.
Pardon?
It's a low turnout for
It's
Williston.
15%, I think.
It
Right.
is 15%.
It's unusual.
Does anybody
Very
know what the numbers were for the last time there was a budget that went up?
What was our vote?
That went up for a vote? That passed?
Right.
Like last one was,
Last year.
it's not a
Yeah,
yearly
I think
thing,
it
is
was
it
like
yearly?
Yeah, it is
Every
yearly.
year.
It is every
It's
year.
every year, so
So,
Probably could
what are the
look
numbers
it up.
usually? Is this a aberrant number or?
And I would suggest in a non-election year as well, because last year
Yeah.
was presidential.
the year
and-
Yeah.
before probably would be a better
I don't know.
indicator.
I mean, we could probably look at those numbers and try and
Well, it was March. It's March when the
calculate
vote
something
happens.
out of it.
It's not during, it's not in,
But
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I suspect with a close margin like that, if we take one or two things out of it or just advertise it more, it'll pass.
Well, I think the discussion that we really need to, the hard discussion we really need to have is how much do we believe in the iPad initiative? And if we believe in it, what do we think we can do to convince the community that it's worth their money? And if we don't believe, you know, if either we don't believe enough in it and we feel we need to sacrifice it, that's one option. I think that's the discussion. I think the co-teaching thing is a little bit more complicated in that, starting next year, it's not going to be ours to put to a vote, and it's if I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the model that the entire CSSU is going to be using as they go forward, regardless, the co-teaching model.
I think it'll eventually get there. I think, and some of the schools may pick it up now. What will happen is they're gonna have to figure out what's the allocation of resources across CSSU by school.
By school, yeah.
And I don't know if that, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that's necessarily been finalized
No, I don't think
yet.
it has either. It's,
Yeah.
I can't let that, I don't think it has a bearing. I also am not necessarily, well, okay, so there was a decision packet that added some funds to do the co-teaching model. You know, I suppose you could look at that too, but I don't know. I welcome your opinion on it.
Along those lines, here's what I think. I don't think that people necessarily are against it. I do believe people don't understand it. And I
that's
think
a
we
good
have
way
an
to put it.
obligation to make it clear to them. And I think there's just anxiety around that.
Okay.
That's all I think is really surrounding that aura.
The thing I would just remind us that whoever is gonna vote no is gonna vote no.
Yep.
Even with clarification. In other words, explaining exactly what this is about. One of the questions I always think about as we have questions is, what would you need to know to make you, to say, oh, I didn't realize that, and now I'm gonna change my mind? And I think sometimes, if you ask people that, there is nothing we can give them for information. They're simply, they just don't agree with it. Not
Unless
because,
it's-
for a lot of different reasons, but they just don't agree with it.
There's that demographic, but there's also the ones who are swayed by, like, Yvonne is saying, and other people that, whatever, one thing or another. I think if you took the iPad initiative out, there'd probably be a certain number of those people who voted against it, and if you took it out, they would probably still vote for it. So, just one thing I'd like to say is that as a, new board member, and as a voter and a fairly educated, citizen, I didn't really know or hear a whole lot about the iPad initiative, didn't think about it a lot. I'd seen it in the school bell and read about it, and didn't see it in the budget anywhere, and didn't really, give it a whole lot of thought. But with that being said, finding out there was a $95,000 allotment for iPads, or at least that's what I was told. I don't know if that's an accurate number or not. I was quite surprised by it, and it certainly probably wouldn't have swayed me to vote against it. But I imagine that if I didn't have kids in the school system and I was over the age of 45, which I am, but I have kids in the school system, I would have not voted for it, because wouldn't necessarily thought that it would have been a worthwhile thing. So I don't know about the co-teaching. I wasn't here for an iPad presentation or anything, but I agree with you, Walter, that there's gonna be nobody that we're gonna sway, really. We're not gonna have the resources to do that, to sway somebody who's gonna vote against the iPad initiative. But if we take it out, then they can vote for it, right? So that's kind of what you were saying.
It's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my thoughts are there's a couple things we need to do. We need a little more information about the voter turnout this time versus the voter turnout maybe the last 2 years. It's pretty simple information. We'd like someone to get for us, if you could help us out with it. Thanks. And then I think we need to take a look at a shortened but important process of community inclusion again.
Everybody knows now.
Yeah, so, but yeah.
I just want to comment to that, because there were comments made at the town meeting informational hearing about, or there were allegations that the school board administrators were not forthcoming about the iPad initiative. And I feel that was grossly inaccurate. I think this board was very good about making sure that was clear and conspicuous, and the administrators did as well, holding public hearings and information sessions. So I agree we need to do it again, but I just feel it, to reaffirm what Walter and the administrators did, I think was the right thing, and we
Yeah.
should be proud of the engagement that we did.
Yeah,
I would agree with everything you just said, Josh. However, I will say this, and this was actually part of the communication that I sent of my thoughts. I think we did a phenomenal job at informing, holding these, what was it, a cafe Q&A session in the morning and in the evening. We included it in the flyer that was distributed to everybody, I think, every resident, right? Where does it go? Virtually, right? Where I think lies an opportunity for us, though, is I don't think we should have maybe gone out to the outside community.
It's church dinner and pancake breakfast time.
Well, it's also a $95,000 budget item, which
Yeah.
is equal to a bus.
I think that's.
And the
big-
buses are all out on their own, you know. So I think, hey, I'm all for kids getting iPads. But what? I mean, somebody's not just giving them to us, they're falling out of a tree. There was never much of a discussion about the cost of them. I didn't see much discussion about the cost in the Observer. I might have missed it or something, but.
It actually even was conveyed in the
Was it?
Observer.
Well,
Yeah.
and
So
it-
I was just, you know, I don't know, I guess.
I think, I think we're hearing what people's perception was. So
Yeah.
we may have used all of the tools that we felt were available to us, but it didn't sway. So,
Yeah.
so again, it comes down to, if we believe in it, then we need to go beyond that. I think it's two things. We need to
Yeah.
tell the story better and tell it to a broader audience.
Correct.
That's it.
And I have a question. Somebody asked me, well, why couldn't it have been pulled out as a single line in the budget process? Is that something we can do?
Why
No?
not?
No, because it's being built, it's a program,
It's-
it's built over time.
Yeah, it's not a
It's not
a
single,
one-shot
it's
item.
not a single
Not a
item.
bonded issue.
It's,
Ah,
and
It's
it's
not
not
bonded,
capital,
yeah.
so it's not
I
like
see.
a new addition to the
I
school.
wish I would have known that when this.
And I
person
think
said
the
that.
other piece is, it was put in there to also free up other computers and participate in the replacement cycle. And I don't think that was really understood.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not just giving them to this group, but it's freeing up what we have
Mm-hmm.
and replacing.
yeah, well, we,
It's a
There's
tough
a lot.
sale.
yeah,
It's a tough
it is a
sell.
tough sell.
Just
So,
because of, you know, what the iPad represents, you know.
I think we are living to put an analogy.
The toy.
We're going through what every school went through with the introduction of computers, but it's a new version.
yeah,
But
there's
it's-
some more sensitivities though, and we've heard that.
Part of the compounding factor is that we had a 5.1% budget increase, which translated into an 8% tax increase. I think had we
Oh,
done
yeah.
this at a time, arguably when we were below inflation on our budget increases, we might have a better ability to sell it. I think that compounds the argument. And I feel good about the budget that we passed. I feel proud of what we did, or what we supported, we didn't pass it. But I must throw out, at least for discussion, do we want to try to sharpen our pencils further, aside from considering dropping the iPad, but do we feel that we need to fundamentally relook at the budget? I'm not saying we do, but I'm
I'm
just
glad
asking
you-
the question.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think that we would be remiss not to. Because it is we're talking, look, if we pull the iPads out, it's less than 0.5% of that increase. Okay, it's not a fiscal changer. It's a lightning rod issue that, you gotta look at what it is. So,
And I feel like it's really philosophical. It's people
Yeah,
wanting
absolutely.
to have the technology or not.
right.
It's really not, I don't think it's
Or
much
how
about the
much.
money.
Or believing, yes.
Because that's what we heard, that's what we heard at town meeting.
So we don't have to, the good news here is that we don't have to make these decisions tonight. What we need to do tonight is really make sure we ask administration, Walter and the team, to get us the information we need to make a good decision. And we also need to make some plans to get some information from the community.
And, sorry.
It's kind of how, I think that's from a process standpoint.
But from the administration's perspective, as far as building a new budget, do you need further guidance from
We need
us?
guidance.
Yeah.
We need to maybe have a percent of what do you want to shoot for, and we can show you what it looks like. We need something,
Yeah.
of how to approach it. And I think that's why Kathy's here, because the program council can start, but we're planning this tomorrow, so we need to know, like, what are we thinking of? What are we looking for? What's a target? You know, things like that.
So, so is the consensus that we hold harmless the baseline increase? So are we talking the difference between 4.12 and 5.08, or whatever it ended up being? Or do you wanna dig down into that? Because I don't know. Tell me what you think, I know what I think.
I would be curious from a deliberative process, what it would mean if we held the increase at inflation. I'm not saying I want to go there, but I'd like to know what that means, what we'd have to cut, what we would have to give up, so that we,
So what, you took it from 4.12 down to what, 3.5?
3.5. I'm not saying I want to go there, Kevin. I'm just saying,
I think, yeah,
if we're going to sell a 4.5% budget, I think we need to be able to communicate, if we don't do this, you know, we're going to lose X, Y, and Z things to the community.
that's, I think, the critical point here. I think we need to
That's
make
understandable.
tangible to people what we are giving away.
Okay.
Because when they understand the impact it'll have to the quality of education that they currently have, I think that's gonna be a wake-up call.
Okay.
So I'm confused though, are we keeping the iPads in and we're looking at cutting?
I think,
Back down
I
to the
think
3%?
they're separate issues.
Yeah, I think they're
Right.
separate.
Because the iPad was an increase, it was a decision, you know, it was an increase
Yeah.
beyond the baseline anyway. So it can, we know what that fiscal impact is. We don't have to ask anybody
Right.
about that in particular.
Right.
So if we're gonna ask administration to do, and the team to do this level of work, let's make sure we give them everything we want them to do so they can be logical about it. So you're asking at 3.5%, I guess we know, my assumption is that at baseline, at 4.12, everything's pretty much stays as is. There's nothing else goes in. It's, right, and the decision packets that were voted on are in. That's the 4.12 answer.
No decision packets are
None.
Yeah.
None.
None.
There's no flexibility.
Yeah, because that's your increase to the baseline.
Right. And so what we've got other than the iPods are essentially the co-teaching model,
We had
the
some.
early,
It's 0.91%, but all of the other decision packets, that was it, it's
Yeah.
less than 1%.
And how many decision packets were there? Co-teaching iPad?
We had
And
15, I thought.
Science and
Science.
outreach into the community for helping families access services. I think those were the main things that were there. There wasn't a lot.
No.
Less than 1%.
Yeah,
and I just want to be clear, I'm not,
yeah.
No, I understand.
Advocating.
I understand the process that you're asking for. It's not a,
It's a good question, though,
yeah,
and I think it's a question
think-
we
I
all
think
need
we
to
need to
ask
do the work.
ourselves.
What's driving it is our shrinking student population right now,
Right.
which is revenue side. And that, you know, I think if we listen to the governor, he's the one that says, you know, as we have fewer students in the state,
Yep.
we've got to kind of shrink the size of the expenditures at school. We have to do that and make it cost effective.
Yeah.
So, but in our case, I mean, I think just the history is we've done this for about
Yeah.
4 to 5 years now. There's no fluff in the budget. I mean, this is all programs and people, which is, we can do this and lay it out. So what we'll try to do is get leaner and really concentrate on what we want to do best in the
Okay.
process, and then you can see what it looks like.
Does anybody know, did the school buses pass?
yeah,
did.
all four of them. 2 for CVU, 2 for Williston,
Okay,
out of the Williston, bonded to Williston.
all right.
I guess,
They usually do.
I feel like as a board member, I really want to stand behind the budget that we put out. Because I feel like we've done that work.
Well, I
That
think,
work.
yeah, I think our path here is parallel. I think we need to have this information so that for our own information, so we can make some decisions about the budget that we put forward, and also for the community's information, and to inform them as to why we're going to make the decisions we're gonna make.
And to make it tangible to them. I think that's a
Yep.
critical word. Because the numbers, I mean, yeah, they'll talk, but when parents understand that, say they're gonna have, I'm gonna make this up, because I have no
Yeah.
idea. No PE, no music, no art,
Mhm.
that hits home.
I guess I'd feel differently if the difference was a bigger discrepancy. 27 votes is what the difference
Well,
We
I think
cannot keep-
that's
yes.
because, well, that's one of the reasons we're asking for the voting information, the turnout information, and, you know, compared to prior years, and, you know, any information that you can get from the voting lists about, you know, parents that, you know, the turnout of parents, you know, if that's available information, we should factor that into the discussion.
Can I just ask a procedure question?
Yeah.
So we ask Walter to amend his budget,
Mhm.
and we can give him direction as we please.
Pretty much.
So we could say cut it 1%, or we could ask him to perhaps reduce arts and PE. Is that right?
We could. We could go that way.
And
Yeah.
then he would go and run this budget, put this budget together, and then present it to us?
Yeah, and come back to us and tell us the impacts generated by our request.
Okay, okay.
But I'll just speak up for a second. I mean, typically, in terms of the role of the board, it would be your role to say, go back, show us what you determine as the educational leader, Walter, you determine with your team and your leaders makes the most sense if we want to trim this at what percent, whatever it is, 0.1 or whatever, so that they're making the decisions based on what they know to be the curriculum and the program that is warranted. So typically, that's it, rather than you kind of assigning it to PE or to art.
It's
Except I do know that in
within our,
certain circumstances, you know,
Yeah.
athletic teams have been cut specifically because of budgets. And I don't know who made that decision or how it was made. I was just curious how it came about. So I guess it could have come in many different ways.
Not in Williston, no.
No, I don't know. No, not in Willis. This was in Burlington.
so, I mean, it's within our ability to get that granular.
Yeah.
It's not really, like Molly put it, it's not the best use of our role. So, as a last resort, you know,
Sure.
we might get down to something like that, but I'd much rather have them come back, just like as Molly said, and kind of tell us the implications of what, I say, a hold at inflation budget would mean. That's a good example. Because you know,
The reality is we're gonna be looking at what's the total educational experience.
yeah,
And it's gonna impact, I mean, it will impact everything. It might not wipe out a program, but it may reduce some options. But then you'd say, depending on how you do it, what we look at is from the time the students enter kindergarten all the way up through 8th grade, what's the total educational experience that we can give them? And when you cut back on numbers, it simply says that it's gonna be less. And that's why I'm saying we can lean it out. It depends on how far we have to get. And we know the budget, we know how it supports the master schedule, things like that, all the options that are there. And where would be the best places maybe to say, okay, this is the best we can do is do this.
so, okay, so, did you get any feedback about?
Cindy came back and said July 1, and
Oh,
at that
that's-
point, then you revert, but she, at the end, said, I think. So that's why I didn't jump in to inform you. So I've got two other out, but I don't think Bob's answering right now.
So if we work within that 2-week timeframe after April break, say the first 2 weeks of May, let's just assume that that's a possibility.
It gives us time,
It gives us some
in a
time.
very worst case scenario.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel confident that we can get a budget that we feel good about, that we support, that doesn't harm our children, and that will get it and will pass.
yep.
The piece that I've been contemplating, though, and as you look at the shrinking population, and you look at the fixed cost increases, contracts, all that sort of thing, do they balance out? Or are you on a slope that you're gonna be cutting programs on a regular basis? It's the only way to make those two things match. You know, and I think we're gonna find out pretty quickly about, we know we've lost some students, there's no question about that, but is the revenue that we're losing off of that enough to balance out so we don't just start cutting programs all the time? Because we have fixed increases, I mean, we just have to deal with those.
But I think that fundamental question may not be, I think that's the right question to be asking, and I think that's one we're gonna have to struggle
Struggle
with
with.
over the next several years about sustainability.
That's right.
And I think it's gonna implicate the labor negotiations that we have in the next year, and really all those things that we look
Do
to
we
address.
get a per student dollar figure from the state? It's based on, okay. What percentage of their cost per se would you say is the state supporting?
I don't know offhand, it's based on a per student basis. Our students are only counted as 80% students, and the high school started counted as 1.0.
Not sure what you mean by that.
It's the way the calculation works.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they do this, it's called the equalized
So how much do we
pupil,
get
right?
per student from the state?
I'd
There's
have
no-
to look it up.
You don't know, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have it in front of us.
All
It's
right.
like
All right.
huge spread.
And arguably, it's all from the state.
Yeah.
There's a statewide property tax rate
Yeah.
that generates
Yeah.
X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
And then every penny on the tax rate that we set above that generates another set of dollars. And that's equalized amongst all the communities in the state of Vermont. So it's that formula.
Yeah, it's that, yeah.
So I think what we need to do at this point is give Walter some time to come back to us with some information, but we need to, I think, we need to have another board meeting to take this input and discuss our next steps.
So I would agree with that, and I would say, in addition to that, then I would recommend that we have like a public forum right after that to inform, what our process of evaluation was, where we stand, and what we, hear feedback from them, right?
Yes, I agree.
At some point, we should have a public forum.
How much time will it take for the administration to digest what we're saying, and
How much time
what do you need?
feel you're gonna need to dig into this and be able to get back to us with some?
I mean, we have to do this quickly anyway. I would say, I was just looking at the calendar, because we used to meet on Thursdays, every other week. So the first, I mean, we need a little bit of time, but I'm looking at the 28th of March to say, what can we do? What can we bring back?
So that's when you're suggesting we have a meeting?
Yes, that's the 28th of March is, there we go, March.
Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
We were meeting at like 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
Can we push that meeting back? It would be helpful to me.
Meaning later?
Yeah, no later in time as opposed, I mean, I gotta double check my calendar, but
There's,
getting here at 4:30 is really difficult.
We would meet in Williston, though, right?
Yes.
might I suggest, I have a conflict actually with another committee meeting that evening, believe it or not. The Compensation Review Committee is meeting. And that took a lot of work to get that date set. What about the following Tuesday? Which would be
Second?
the 2nd of April. Is that pushing it? At that point, is the 2 days gonna make a difference?
Yeah.
How does that look on people's schedules?
I'll tell you in a second,
Yeah, I know.
in 5 minutes.
And I'll work with you on other issues for that agenda too.
Okay.
Because I think we'll have a bunch of things to discuss, what actions we want to do to involve the public, when and where and how. Because we're into April, it's going to happen quick after that.
Well, why don't we define that now?
Well, I think what we can do is I suppose we can define a date now for a public forum.
Right.
But
Let's work backwards for just a second. If we have, let's say, the second Tuesday of May, the election,
That would be the 7th.
when do we need, or whatever date we
Yep.
have, what date do we have to get the budget to the town clerk,
And have it warned.
and have
And
it
how long
warned.
does it has to be warned for, do
Uh,
you recall?
You're gonna have me start digging into this new green book I have.
I
don't
know, actually, yeah.
Is Bob available to?
He's not answering, so even if I ask him to come with this, I don't think he's on or something. I'm not sure what's up.
So I think we're gonna have to play this a little bit more rough and loose than we normally do on setting meeting
Oh.
times.
Here's Bob. July 1 is correct, and so should I ask him to pop on down here for a
Yeah,
minute?
I think that'd probably be good, so we can move along. So,
You wanna table this?
well, in the interest of time, while we're waiting for Bob, why don't we move through the rest of our discussion items, because they should go, I think, a little bit quicker than this one.
Do you want me to just ask him how long that posting is for it to be warned, or do you have more questions than that?
My preference would be to have him here, just so as we can nail this
We
down.
can get it all done.
sounds good.
Because also, we have, the observer here, that, that would be great to get the dates out there,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that we, that if we commit the dates tonight, we're committing the dates we can make, and if we can't commit the dates we can make because we don't have enough information, we're not gonna do it here. That's where I'm at.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so if we meet on Tuesday, the 2nd of April, we probably should have a community forum like the following week at the latest, like that Wednesday, the 10th kind of thing. That looks like a half day for school, at least it is for CBU. I don't know if it is for.
we don't have half days, no.
Oh, that's right. So, that might be a good time to do it.
Is there a better day, like historically, of participation from the community? No?
No, I don't think so.
So then it
Thoughts?
doesn't matter.
Please.
The community forum, what is the purpose of that? Is that to show a new budget, or is that a
It's to-
place that you're asking for feedback?
I think,
So that's, this date would not work if it's a day that you're looking for feedback.
no, I think, and this is my thought, everybody please jump in. I think that day, because first we're gonna have the information that we just requested, right? What it would look like to go down to that 3 whatever percent it was, so that it's tangible what that impact would be. So say coming out of that meeting, we feel comfortable enough to say, okay, and these are all, just speaking out loud, but say we're ready to present a recommendation to the community, where it says, okay, scenario A, this is what it looks like, this is what it means to you. Scenario B, this is our, say
Then
that
we
we're
need
very
to-
happy
then
with what we
I
have.
actually think I see your point, because here's the thing. Before we present any options to the community, I want to hear from the community about what their feedback was. And I think it's important that we listen before we make any decisions. I think it's a perception, and I think it's a smart way of doing business.
Okay,
Okay, so perhaps we need to, regardless of the information being presented to us on the 2nd of April, we may very well want to schedule sometime in the next 3 weeks a community forum for feedback.
I think that's a great idea.
And we can guide that discussion, but we should get people's feedback,
I think that's a great idea.
okay?
Do we have any type of a list that we could do a survey monkey on?
Well, a survey, it's a good question. Now, the survey, there's a survey that you mentioned that you do with parents in the springtime. What's the timing on that, and kind of in reference to this, when do you guys do that survey?
It'll be about May.
So that's gonna be a little bit late,
different,
yeah.
though. That's a different
Um,
objective, though, right?
Right.
We could create one specifically for
Well,
budget, but
I
I
think-
would more like to have a face-to-face
Well, you
discussion.
can have both, right?
You can.
Surveys, yeah, the thing about surveys is, it takes a bit of work to craft a survey, and so if we're gonna do that, then I think I would ask that one or two of us go off on a subcommittee and build that survey.
Yeah.
I think we
Because
also,
you need to have a goal, you need to know what you're asking, and you need
Okay,
to,
I'm just gonna go back to Kathy's point of what are we gonna do with the information that we get?
So,
Because if
yeah, 'cause
parents
then-
say, we don't want this, we don't want
Right,
that.
so you can
What,
ask.
yeah,
So
are we
make up
asking
your
for input,
timeline, because
or are we
your
letting
budget
Walter do
vote
that?
is
Yeah.
April if you're thinking you're putting a budget vote out
Right.
May 2nd, you're going to take,
Yeah.
are you planning on taking the information that you derive from the
Collected.
community's feedback to decide what percentage cut you want on the next budget?
Because we're asking Walter to do
Because
that.
then there needs to be a period of work time in between there before you can
You see?
agree on a budget.
I
What-
actually think that
What do we,
Kevin Mara's suggestion of holding a feedback session from the community, from our existing scenario, is well warranted. And I think we should have that within the next they need at least, we should give the community 2 weeks' notice.
Well, that puts us on the 27th,
Yeah.
So,
which is fine.
I think you're asking, I don't know, maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work.
I just think.
I don't think you're gonna have a lot of
I think,
participation, to be honest.
well, but the thing
You can only
is,
get 1,200 people to come to vote.
no, well, and
Yeah,
it never
but
is that
that's-
way.
Yeah, but that's not
But
the,
our job is to put an opportunity out there.
yeah.
And whether they
Our
come or
job is
not,
to
that's
put the
their
opportunity
choice.
out and to make sure it's well communicated.
And-
And maybe we can figure out some ways to do that a little bit better this time.
Yeah.
That's, you know,
Yes.
Yeah.
So I suggest we take that feedback first, and then shortly, immediately thereafter, then we meet on April 2nd to give feedback to Walter, so that they proceed with whatever feedback we get from that to rework the numbers. And then we have yet another meeting to present our recommendation before we post, what is it called? A warning.
Yeah, before we adopt and then warn. So we adopt, then we warn the community and they vote.
Right.
Have we had a CSSU community have a budget fail in the last 2 or 3 years?
We could,
Not 2 or
there's,
3.
no,
Other
but,
schools in the CSSU?
Yeah.
In the- Yeah, I believe so.
I would just be curious how they dealt with it as far as
I think,
the level of
um,
process.
yeah, I think we can ask. I know there's other board members in other communities who've gone through it. That's really, yeah.
Because
I think
it
Shelburne-
appears to be a
Shelburne has
balance.
in the
We've
past.
got,
Yeah.
you know, we certainly want to make this as transparent and as involved of a process with the public as possible, but we have quite a truncated timetable to react. And I think we just have to balance the realities of that, that's all.
Okay, so in the interest of time, because we do need to move along because we're gonna bump up against the CSSU board after this. I suggest that we just narrow down what we're asking from Walter and the team, and the dates that we're committing to here, to take feedback, to go through the information that's given to us, and then, I'm not sure, if we do our feedback meeting in the next 2 weeks, let's, on the 27th, and then we meet on the 2nd, I think on the 2nd, we can determine when we want to come back to the community, because I don't know if we're going to be ready on the 2nd. You know, if we're going to be ready the week or two after that, quite honestly.
okay, that's fine.
I mean, you know, like I said, I don't want to commit to a meeting date that we can't keep.
Now, on the feedback day, let me just, for devil's advocate, would it be worth it to present that day to the community, in addition to feedback, this suggestion of that 3.1% would mean?
I don't think we have enough information before Walter gives us that information. If we have the feedback meeting, I want to take feedback. I don't want to
That's
throw
fine.
out any scenarios. I just want to hear from whoever's interested in showing up, what they have to say.
Okay. Sounds good.
And we can guide the discussion, you know, ask questions and so on, but I think that's our role.
Mhm.
Does everybody disagree? Okay, so so we're committing to the 27th, which is a Wednesday.
The 27th?
Yeah, I guess it needs to be an evening meeting,
Here he comes.
so the community can participate. We usually do them at 6 or 6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, so 6:30 on Wednesday, the 27th, we'll have a community feedback forum. Okay?
Yeah. And Walter, would it be possible to, I just want us to be really sensitive about timeliness of communication to the broader community. Can we, because the school bill just went out today, but can we include something in all of the, that's the other recommendation I gave, in all of the Friday folders for teachers? To just put it in there, there's gonna be a budget forum meeting.
Just be aware, I know from past experience, not all houses send them out anymore.
Well, whatever it is, I'm just thinking we need to
Let's just,
spread out.
hey, let's just send an alert, well, even an email, like, just like you get the school bill. just an just an
Exactly,
alert
whatever it
email would
is.
be
But
good.
I'm concerned about email though, because we are really jumping into a conclusion that everybody checks the email.
Okay, all right.
That's why,
I'm, it's not a point worth arguing to me, the more we get it out, the better.
Are you with the observer? I mean, are you Stephanie?
Hi, Stephanie.
Nice to meet you, Stephanie. That's why, so, I mean, I'm hoping it will be in the observer.
Yeah, I know, I got looking over.
wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But where are you gonna hold it?
We'll hold it at WCS, and,
Dining room area?
well, I gotta give Walter a chance to tell us whether it's open or not, but I'm assuming,
I mean, we can make it open.
yeah,
Yeah,
We'll move everything.
that's pretty
This is
critical,
on
I
the
think.
27th.
yeah.
327 at 6:30 PM.
3:27, 6:30 PM in the dining room.
Yeah, I won't be there, but
Okay,
that, I can learn from you all.
good enough.
Walter, how many, excuse me.
Sure.
How many voting families would you say there are that attend Williston Central School?
You mean Williston completely?
No, at the school, the Williston Central School.
Voting
Not the,
family?
not the
Yeah,
district
like
itself.
how many kids are there?
Oh,
722, but that's different than families.
I know, I
Yeah.
realize that.
About 722 students.
722 students, okay.
There's about 1,100 total.
Elaine thinks you get 80% of your current budget to live with if you don't pass it by June 15th. But she ends with, I think, as well.
80%, and
That's
now
not
it's
a
getting to be
number, yeah.
really ugly.
I put out all my texts and I got
Okay.
3 different answers.
And then we're going to have a warned board meeting on the Tuesday, the 2nd.
What time is that?
I,
5? Is that good?
can you make 5?
I'll make 5.
Are we talking the 2nd or the
Yeah, the
27th? 2nd, 5 PM?
The question was about warning. Do you know how long something has to be warned? Is it a week?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the 80% language that the superintendent has quoted. The language of, that's applicable in the law is Title 16, 711, E and F. F in particular because it begins with the sentence, if the proposed budget is rejected. It reads, the board shall prepare a revised budget, the board shall establish a date for a vote on the revised budget, shall take appropriate steps to warn a public informational meeting. The date of the public information meeting shall be at least 5 days following the public notice. The date of the vote shall be at least 7 days following the public notice. The vote on the revised budget shall be by Australian ballot, and shall take place in the same locations the first vote was had. The budget shall be established if a majority of all votes cast are in favor. If the revised budget is rejected, the board shall go to the beginning of paragraph F and start again. That's Bob's language for that last sentence, not a lawyer's. So my understanding is you as a board need to respect that timeline, those deadlines
that's
for each. You
exactly,
need
yeah.
to provide enough time between each of your events.
Where'd you find that?
You can go back to voting as often as you'd like and still respect those timelines and understand you're spending money each time you do it. And you can do it as often as you want, till whenever you want. My understanding is you end up with last year's budget on July 1st
That's what
if you don't have a budget approved, but you only end up with that to the extent you've given up, going back to voters again. But Elaine and I can double check on
That's
the
my
June
memory, is
15th.
yours, but I don't know I don't know about this one.
Section 16,
Title 16, paragraph 711E.
I know the section,
Or, excuse me, F was what I just read.
the section number,
This is a section,
the number.
number. It's
Well,
in that
how
page. You
difficult
want the
is it
page?
to send out a
721?
survey
711.
to parents?
711E,
It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's gotta be crafted.
So,
paragraph F.
the synopsis on warning then,
That's
from
under-
what you
let
just
me just
read,
Yes.
did everybody
I have no idea. I
Take
can't
that.
remember the timeline, so I hope somebody wrote it down.
I think the magic number I heard was the 7-day.
7 was I heard, yeah.
7-day warning.
So 7 days from the
That's what I thought, a week.
proposal to the vote, till we it gets approved by
You need
us.
to give the public 7 days notice of the vote.
It has to
7 days
be
notice.
legally posted,
And
right,
legally posted by the town or.
yeah.
So that's actually shorter than I
But
expected.
the public
So-
information meeting needs to be 5 days prior to the notice, right? So you've got two,
Within 5 days or
No, So 7 plus 5.
so you have the election, you have the notice, and then you have a public informational meeting prior to the public notice.
So, okay. I'm gonna bring it back around and get us back on track,
Yeah,
okay? So we have our 2 meeting dates established.
Yep.
yeah.
We have our criteria we've asked Walter and his team to go after. We know what we're doing in those meetings. I think the only other issue we need to discuss before we move on is the survey. Do we want to do a survey, and if so, how do we want to execute it? I have mixed feelings. I truly think that it can be useful if we
The only
expend
problem with the
some-
survey is
some effort.
We're gonna have a very biased return on it because we're sending it out to the. Not necessarily to people who don't have kids,
I like the
unless we have a way to access them.
I like the survey idea, I just don't think it's appropriate for the stage in which we're in. I would love to do that next year when we have a more prolonged process.
Well, I would just say, ask something about if you took the iPad initiative out, how would you vote? Or something along those lines. Send a feeler out. Honestly, I think that no matter what we do, this budget's gonna pass next time we put it up for vote. So I don't think we should do we should do too much as far as damaging the chance our kids have of having a good education or our facilities getting debilitated. If we've got voters who are willing to vote for buses, I think that, that's probably the first thing people are gonna be voting against unless they have a certain lightning, like you were saying, lightning rod issue.
Yeah, I think
Not to
this
be an
is-
optimistic, but I am, so.
Well, that's great. I just think we need to do our diligence so we can get there,
I
so that we
agree.
have, so that we have our ducks
just-
lined up to defend the
Well,
budget we feel is best.
Yep, good.
So if I'm looking, if we're going May 2nd, is that what we're talking about?
Yep, that's what you said.
Then,
For the voting.
so for the voting day, that means we've got to have the public informational meeting roughly the 19th, which if you look at April 4th, it gives us, 2.5 weeks,
And that's it.
and that's it. So I throw it out there that that's a pretty compressed schedule. I think we could probably do it, I suspect, but it depends on the level of public engagement that we want.
Well, yeah, I think realistically, we can't push the vote past May 15th.
Right.
I think that's to me anyway, pretty much a drop dead date. So, there's only a few weeks there. I think where we're at now is doable, so.
Any feedback from administration?
It's tight.
It's
Yeah.
tight.
It's tight, but we can't hire or do anything until we have a budget.
Yeah. I mean,
we got
not
So
having
tight
it
is good.
impacts everything.
Is your view.
It impacts everything. We're frozen right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Bob, there was one more question for you.
There was.
People were asking, what are the other budgets that have not passed in recent years? And seeking advice from other boards about, did they go back with an instant revote without changing? Or who might they talk with in the interim while they're doing some planning?
Who out of the 5 schools had a budget fail?
In the past.
Not just
that we
this
could
year,
learn.
but other years.
Recent
That we could learn from.
Mostly
We did.
Williston,
Yeah, we did.
Yes, well,
and once Charlotte 2 years
Charlotte
ago.
Comes to mind as well,
And we went back with a pretty similar budget, right?
as did Charlotte.
Yeah.
when
And
that
we may
was
very well be there
different.
again. I'm just,
So-
And it didn't pass.
And it didn't pass.
well, there you go.
Ours did, though. Ours did.
The difficulty was going back with the same budget is you each are making a read as to why people checked the other box. Sometimes that isn't really accurate. You're anticipating behavior and you have really no substantial amount of data, or no data to go after that.
Okay.
And then the minute you start making adjustments, you do run the risk that for every adjustment you make, you're gonna attract 3 new voters to say yes and irritate 3 to say no. So it's just a very, very difficult process to
Yeah.
navigate.
That's why we need to keep in mind those 27 differences. Because I think one of our key goals is, in addition, obviously, because we owe that to the community, but the second, just as important goal is to get more voters to the polls.
Yep. Agreed. So let's move forward because we are officially behind.
Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
Before you leave off? So I'm looking for some direction, because I've heard 3.5, 4.1, and just take out the iPods. And those are three very
3.5.
vastly different.
3.5.
That's what I got.
Say again?
3.5.
Look at the option of a
Just 3.5.
3.5% increase only.
Because we already have the
Below the
baseline
baseline.
of the 4.1.
We already-
So we know what that looks like.
No, I think there's some misunderstanding here. At the 4.1, that's the baseline with no additions, but that's still an increase of 4.1.
Correct.
Right, and we understand.
And we know
Okay.
what that impact is. We've gone through that process.
Okay,
That's why we're only asking you to take a look at a 3.5% increase that's less than the 4.12.
okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
let's run through the rest of discussion matters here, because we have another one that's gonna take a little bit of time. Policy review. So at this point, the policies were provided to you previously. If, in your review of them, if you have any questions or concerns, they need to be brought up now so that
Yeah.
Giovanna can take it back to the committee.
Yeah, and so Cindy actually outlined what the changes were in the policy, so I assume everybody had a chance to review. Any comments, feedback that you would like me to carry over?
No, I'm comfortable.
That looked good.
Let's just wait a couple seconds
Yep.
here.
I guess, and I struggle with this about on a regular basis reporting or as requested. I noted it, but I don't know how I feel about it at the moment.
Which one are you
This is
looking at, Josh?
Teacher
teacher
evaluation.
evaluation and supervision. My gut tells me it would be best to have some of that on a regular basis in order to discharge our fiduciary obligation.
Yeah, tell me what you're looking at.
D17?
Yeah, and specifically,
Item 3,
the chair of the SG supervision.
an evaluation committee will collaborate
Oh, yeah.
with the superintendent to prepare and deliver the school board a report and recommendations about the supervision and evaluation system and practices and the work of the committee as requested.
As opposed to on a regular basis.
Yeah, I just think that's the kind of thing that we should get regular updates on, whether, it doesn't have to be weekly or monthly, but
I mean, you know where that could come in as part of the work plan. So at the retreat, when we're deciding what the work plan is for the year, make a note that, and there are some things that are on the work plan every single year, even though we don't have a policy that says. Maybe that should be one of them.
Right.
At a certain month of the year, you're gonna get the report on supervision and evaluation and what the process is. In some years, it might be a quick, here's the report in the back, do you have any questions? In some year, it might be a full-blown presentation.
understood. I guess I'd feel more comfortable with that being
Right,
as a part of
Yep.
the policy and leave it up to you about what level of report.
right.
or So, that's my thought.
Just real quickly, by way of introduction, Elaine Pinkney, this is our.
I figured that was your new
Hi.
welcome.
Kevin Broch.
And what's your position?
I'm the superintendent,
Nice to meet you.
so we'll be doing a little bit of training at some point here very soon. Hope
Oh,
that you'll be able
okay.
to come. It's fun, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
It is, it is.
Try to give you an overview of the entire organization and how it
Sure.
works. And
So let's get to our item 6.3, after-school programming options.
So the reason I put this on here is because the contract automatically renews. And I know that Holly had talked a lot about the South Burlington model, how well it was going, and the fact that it takes money. And you control the programming, because you get to set it up. So we just said, before we automatically say that we're gonna go with this again, that you have a chance to at least discuss it and say, what do we think? And I tried to give you as much information from part two, which is Heinsberg. They started off with 35 students, and now they have 70. Their school is about 475. We have 70. Our school is 1,100.
I like a lot the cohesion between a program owned by the school and how it can be integrated to our curriculum and leverage our facilities. I like the fact, obviously, that we would make money. That can never.
I agree with you on the curriculum piece especially. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah,
If I could be heard on this, just, I think we should give them notice, the YMCA. I don't think we should make a decision tonight. I don't think we have enough
So
time
that
to
was my
deliberate.
logistical question. So it automatically renews, but do we have the ability to,
You don't have the ability to act tonight because it's not an action item.
Right.
No.
understood?
Right.
But be that as it may, the way the contract is written, do we can give notice and then renegotiate with them, or do we, if we, how do we communicate with them that at this point, we're not taking action, but they should be informed that we may not be interested in, what time period is required to do that?
I think it is April 1st.
I think really, what the push is gonna come to shove is going to be, can you guys hold another meeting between now and April 1st? If after the discussion tonight, it's sounding like you might want to take that action. You would still, it's not that you would be deciding tonight what action you would be taking, but maybe after the conversation tonight, you would come to a place where you would say, we definitely want to hear this, and this. We want to know these pieces, and then we'll be ready to take action. And that would have to happen before April 1st.
Not necessarily. I mean, if I may
Yep.
pose a contrary view, all we have to do is notice to them that there's not gonna be an automatic renewal.
That's what I was trying to.
Doesn't mean that we're not gonna wanna contract with them for another year, but we need more deliberative time.
So that's kind of was my question on the actual contract itself.
We don't have a contract for next year with them.
We have a contract that automatically.
Automatically renews, but we
Unless we
can tell them we want to renegotiate the contract or
Or
something.
reevaluate.
Well, that's,
Reevaluate it.
and that's the wording, I guess, I'm
Yeah.
asking to understand.
I'd have to look at the wording of the contract to see.
Regardless, we previously have determined we need to meet on the 28th, so if we're
Yeah.
gonna, this will be an action item then, one way or the other, I suspect.
On the 27th.
27th, I'm sorry.
Deb, were you ever at the board chair meetings when we were sharing what the financials look like with that? Okay. So that's the kind of thing that we could share with you on the 28th.
And we got
Or
some
even ahead of
sent
time.
over already.
Oh, you
Yeah.
did, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're very interested.
Mm-hmm.
We just need some time to,
And I would like to understand, because I can't remember the debate that we had last year, we decided to go with the Y over this other program. And I think it was the administration's recommendation that we go in that direction. So I need to understand why we need to, I'm not saying I won't go there, but I'd like to understand
What has
why the
changed?
what's
change.
changed?
What is fundamentally different?
Well, I think what Walter talked to them about is integrating more connection with the school, and we got a report on that in our packet, so.
Yeah, you have, I think you got a,
Yeah, we did.
report from the
So-
YMCA also.
So looking at that and seeing if that's really good enough is what we're looking
Can
at.
I say a little bit to it? I think that one of the things that has changed is that the Heinsberg program now has 2 years under its belt. So we're not just looking at, when you were hearing, they didn't even have a full year under their belt. So you're hearing about it at this time last year. I think it was pretty nebulous what the financials would look like, right? I mean, I think Jeff was really being tentative about that, whereas now he is rolling out, here's what's happening in Heinsberg. And I hate, in a way, having these words come out of my mouth, that we're making money. We're really providing a service at the same price that the Y would provide. And I think that it's really important to keep that conceptually in our mind, that we would always be benchmarking against what does somebody else charge. We're not in this to make money.
Agree.
On the other hand, obviously, there is money that's exchanging hands for these programs, and it certainly would benefit not just the after-school program, but our school programs in general, if that money were, stays in the school. But I think that the fact that Jeff has a program that is now a year and 2/3 and has been even more successful in year 2 than it was in year 1 is part of it, and that the financials are much more.
Yeah. And I
Directly
think the
addressed.
only other piece of information that I'm interested in understanding is Jeff ready and able to, step up the volume?
Exactly.
The actual
And I've had a couple
program.
conversations, because you're not the only school that's interested, by the way.
Why?
So I've had a couple conversations with Jeff, he assures me, and I certainly intend to have another one with him,
Okay.
as this is kind of,
Because it's,
yeah, that's it,
I mean,
that's it.
us alone, we're gonna, double again his program? Just at the first year? Yeah.
Right, 70.
And the
Just so
question-
you know, he is the one who started the program in South Burlington.
No, I know.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew that.
I'd also be curious what opportunities might exist with our Spark program and how that
Yeah.
they may be integrated,
Mhm.
if at all. And whether that creates opportunities to expand the Spark program.
We've already, I've talked to the YMCA this week also about, and you got their report, and that's what we asked them for, is give something to the board that you can look at. The one thing is that you're controlling the level of person who's working in the program.
Yeah.
They could be all certified teachers.
Yep.
And then you control the curriculum. So that's a lot. And what it would do is, as Spark does, it would be an extension of the day. And families that can't afford it get reimbursed by the state. So it's not a question of affordability if they qualify for free and
Through the
reduced lunch.
21st century.
Yep.
And that
Learning
doesn't
grants?
happen through the Y program.
It can, but we don't, it's a separate organization that we're working with, so we don't have that kind of knowledge about what they're doing. We just don't. Whereas this is part of what we're doing.
Understood, but
Yeah.
from an evaluative process, that would be an important factor.
Yeah,
and-
that
and
could
to
be the
know-
same. I'm not gonna say it's different. But
Okay.
the idea is, we don't know, we don't have any information about what is actually happening in that arena. We don't.
And we should get that, I guess is what I'm saying. If we know we can get financial aid for one, we should know whether it's available in the other. That's all.
Okay, so what are we asking for prior to taking action, if any, at our next meeting? I guess we need to understand some of the contract, some of the implications of the contract renewal, for timing. Yeah, and, I don't know, do we?
We'll hear from Jeff
We'll
when
hear
he's ready to go.
Yeah, we need to know whether
70.
Jeff's ready to support us.
Do we need to know
Jeff's
what the
commitment.
program will cost us?
Proposed budget?
Well, cost is, there, it will add to your budget.
Right. but
The
it's gonna be paid
offset
for.
is significantly more than the
Right.
cost of the budget. But it will initially look like your budget is up by a certain percentage.
I think we need a proposed budget.
And we're gonna need to understand what that is.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Title I is the same thing. It's those
Yeah.
pieces in the
Yeah.
budget that are offset with revenue, totally offset with revenue, that still drive the bottom line of your budget.
I understand, but we're dealing with a politic right now. before
No,
the
I
budget.
totally,
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Okay. All right,
So, just so you know, and this might be like bleeding out information a little bit prematurely, but Bob and I have also had a conversation about what would it look like if this were SU? So then the money was there, and then you would bill us back for, what it would be is whatever the money coming in would be what you would charge us for our use of the facilities and blah, 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 all of that kind of stuff.
So do we need to raise that in the next 15 minutes as a discussion?
I don't think so, because we need to figure out how we could do that first. But I'm just saying that there's some thinking going on about how to deal with the fact that you can't end up with something that's really worthwhile that you have to explain 20 times over to people in the community, because what they see is the bottom line of your budget just got increased by whatever.
Okay. All right. Unless there are any other questions or items we need, let's move on to our last discussion item, which is communications, board corners, which I think fits in a lot with the discussion we've just had about budget. I think one of us needs to volunteer to perhaps write the next budget communication to be posted in the Williston Observer, and probably needs to be around the subject of the feedback session.
Yeah.
So who's up?
I think Deb is up.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I think the other thing is just the logistics of, so what, because the vote went down, so the other part should be, so what happens then? I don't think the community in general probably knows that.
Well,
Understands,
that
you're
was in the
right.
bell, a piece of
It
that.
was in the bell, but that's not the community,
Right.
they're not
So-
gonna get that.
But we
Get
haven't-
the information from the
Yeah.
DOR.
Yeah.
But we haven't made decisions tonight about when the next vote will be, have we?
No. We,
But I think what Kevin's saying is that once we see what comes out of our next budget the budget forum, then we take part of that information and say where our process is? Or are
I
you
think it makes
thinking-
sense to discuss with the community the, kind of the process that needs to occur here, right? You know, and part of that process is we've determined that we need to, there's another board meeting we know we're gonna have, we can discuss that, and there's a community outreach forum that we've decided we're gonna have, and we can discuss that. Beyond that, there's not much more we can tell.
All right, so at the April 2nd board meeting is when we will set the schedule for the next election and the process?
The 27th, the March 20th, is it the
After
board?
the informational meeting?
Yeah.
Or the public?
Yes,
So if-
correct, that's correct.
So if this is what we want to do in this communication, then we should send this out like ASAP.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, the deadline would be Tuesday
Yeah.
Right.
to get it out for next
Meaning
week.
next week.
For next week,
Yeah. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's
Thank
not gonna
you.
be a big article.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to
Just
be, it's
saying
usually 200
the
words or
dates.
less,
So-
it's usually
so
all they
now
have room to
what,
give us,
kind of?
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's fine.
And, yeah, we can help you out. Okay,
So Kevin, I'm just doing a time check.
we are
Yeah.
hurting.
So I don't know how you wanna,
You could ask if, for the board reports, I mean, unless there are
Well, the
any
reports
questions,
to
you
the
could just
boards,
go
yeah, we
there,
can
'cause
move
they're
that.
included.
Yep, I think actually we can do this.
Yeah, because I think it looks to me like your action items are pretty pro forma. This is the 175-day calendar, you really don't have a choice, that's a blessing to the regional calendar.
Yep.
Next month, you'll see the calendar that will have the parent-teacher conferences and professional development.
Okay, so let's move forward, and let's see if we get any hiccups here. So, let's move on to, item 7, reports to the board. So Walter, your principal's report was included to us. Do you have anything, any highlight items real quick you want to give us?
No, I think I showed you the internal communication about safety.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to put one out next week to the community about what is the role of the community in keeping us safe.
Very
I'm also working with the chief of police and Ken Morton from the fire department, that we may put one out together as a community and just kind of explain in Williston, how do we keep ourselves safe and, support each other and things like that. So that was, you had asked for that, Josh, so that's why I gave you that. And that's been out now to everybody within the school, so everybody's aware of what we need to do.
That's great. And our thanks, by the way, to you and your team.
Exactly.
It was, handling that situation, I thought, was done very well, given having never had to do it that way before.
No, that was our drill.
That was a heck of a way to have one, yeah.
And I could say that the police department was excellent at
Great.
really running the scene, and we got tons of support, which people are really surprised. We got that number, 3 dogs and
Yeah,
23
yeah.
police officers
Just
and
dynamite.
agencies. It was amazing at how quickly and what a good job they did.
I want to say kudos to you and thank you,
Yeah.
because I think the way you handle the communication with parents was really outstanding. I've heard that from many people, and me personally as one. I thank you.
Great.
We don't wanna do it again.
Yeah, really, it's one of those things.
Hopefully
that-
never again.
thank you.
And by the way, we do have the phone number now, just so you know that, but it'll take a subpoena to get it. We know that the phone company has the number recorded because it was blocked.
Yeah, but they have it.
They have it, so I think the police department is gonna
It's gonna
subpoena.
work that one. Yep.
And we should be able to find out where it came from.
Good.
Okay, good. FAPAC?
We're meeting tomorrow morning?
Okay. Okay. And then Policy Committee, anything out of Policy Committee that, from reports, any reports from Policy?
No, we are meeting next week.
Okay.
Are you sure you don't want to join me, Kevin?
Okay, let's go on to action items. Item number 8. 8.1 is adopt the regional calendar. This is on page 20 of your inserts. This is basically, over the last year or two, we've adopted a CSSU-wide calendar for, vacation time and time off and stuff like that.
So
Okay,
So moved.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. 8.2, affirm the code of conduct. This shouldn't be taken in quick passing. This is our code of conduct. If, does anybody need to discuss this?
Do we have to sign it? Like,
Last year, I think
we We did actually sign it, had yeah. one, We had
that we signed. Yeah.
We did.
That we actually physically signed a piece of paper last year.
Are there any changes
I don't
from this
think there
from
is.
last
I
year?
think there are no changes.
It's the same.
As
So I think
long as there's
actually,
no changes
yeah, I
on
think
it.
so. Actually, maybe it's Kevin who needs to
yeah.
affirm. Okay.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to,
So
uh,
moved.
okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've adopted that code of conduct and affirmed it. 8.3, approval of transfer of $33,000 to the construction fund for carpet replacement project. This, I believe, was under discussion last time, right? Just as a quick background, real quick, we, the fund where we do capital improvements is different than the general fund. So if we're gonna take money from the general fund, we have to approve it to go in. So this is a kind of a pro forma thing. We agreed we were going to do it, and now this is the formal action.
And this is carpet that's coming to pieces.
Yeah.
This is for carpet replacement that's coming to pieces.
Yeah,
Right.
it's needed. We-
It's needed. I think we're not doing anything until, I think we figure
Well,
out where the
yeah,
budget is.
Yeah, I understand.
But what it does is, we would be obligated to perform before July 1st. We can't do that right now. I mean, that would be pushing it right to the limit. But if we move the money, we can always access it. The board would access it later on and approve it to be spent on carpeting because it's out of the construction fund.
Right. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Great. This gets us to our consent agenda, which we can move on and approve in one motion. Nobody asked to pull anything out, so my assumption is everything is fine here. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as shown?
So moved?
Need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. Director's comments. The only, just for myself real quickly, I read, I don't know if anybody saw, but there was something that came in from VSBA. There's like on the 28th, which may not fit well with everything going on, they're doing like some training, and I don't know if that coincides with what Elaine was thinking of, or if she's thinking of doing something with the CSSU. I'll send you guys an email if there's any interest, let you know. But it's about the really board members and their role, so.
Yeah, CSSU does their own new board
Good.
orientation, just that's specific to our organization, but then that's a good thing to also go to. I would recommend it.
So, anybody else have any comments?
Nope.
Okay, item 11, just confirming our next meeting dates. We've already discussed that we're doing one on 3/27 at 6:30 for a warned board meeting. In the WCS.
that be at?
That'll be
Sorry.
at, I'm sorry, that's 4/2 at 5 PM is our board meeting. On 3/27, we're going to do the community forum.
In the first line?
And then the dates you see here are upcoming board chair meeting, that's not for myself. On the 19th, policy committee you've got on the 20th, CSSU and WSD regular board meeting, April 10th.
So the March 27th is just the information.
The information gathering
We're
session.
not gonna be having a formal board meeting.
With that, well, actually, we'll have to warn it, because if there's more than 3 of us there, we have to warn it as a board meeting.
Because I
So,
may not be able to attend that.
well, okay, but even if you and Josh can't make it, yeah, we'll make sure
I
that,
can,
We went to the
there's a pretty good chance I will, but.
yeah, it's okay, we'll warn it.
Okay.
Okay.
Giovanna says she has.
Do I need a motion to adjourn, or can I just adjourn? How does that work?
I don't know. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Great.
Okay.
Second?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody, and welcome.